This episode of the FriedEggs Podcast is brought to you by Temp Drop. When I was first trying to conceive, I tracked my basal body temperature with an oral thermometer and set my alarm for the same time every single morning. No exceptions. I remember one morning after a friend's bachelorette party, rolling over at 7 a.m. in a hotel room just to grab my thermometer, take my temp, and fall back asleep. Looking back, that was a lot, but when you're in it, you do what you have to do. And now that I'm postpartum and we're getting ready for our next round of IVF, my body feels like a bit of a mystery to me again. That's where Temp Drop has come in. It's a wearable sensor that tracks your temperature while you sleep, so the data is just there when I wake up. No alarms, no strict routine. It even accounts for those nights when I'm up for late night feeds or my daughter decides to let me sleep in for once. If you know what it's like to be deep in the fertility journey, or you're finding your footing again after having a baby, Temp Drop can help. Use code AFFriedEggs for 10% off your order. Welcome back to the FriedEggs Podcast. Everyone is so excited to hear about your PGT-A results, which we have. Let's just confirm that we have them, because I feel like
we have them.
We kind of left people hanging of like, when are you going to get them? And you do know. So if you haven't already, listen to part 1 of this episode where Amy goes over her 5th egg retrieval and that process. And today we'll be kind of diving into more of that as well as your results.
Yeah. Okay. I always get so shy. Yes. Okay. So we have my results. Sorry. Should I say our results? We have our results.
The results.
The reveal. So as a reminder, we got 8 eggs from the retrieval. Only 50% were mature. So 4 fertilized. So 100% FERT rate. Then 2 made it to blast, day 6s. And those both got biopsied and frozen. And then we waited for PGT-A results. And drumroll, we got 1. I did this, but 1.
Which is great.
We got 1 embryo.
Yes.
1 PGT-A normal embryo, which is great. I went into it's interesting. I was like feeling both ways about it. And Kayti, you know this because we were texting about it. And when we got word that we only got 2 embryos, I was like sad about that, but also knew that realistically that was very good for me based on our past retrievals and based on my now quote unquote advanced age, my low egg count, DOR, all of those things, my low AMH, like getting 2 embryos to blast was like a huge win. But at the same time, I was also like gut punched about the fact that like we only got 2. It's like really, really messy in my head how both things can be true, like the emotional reaction and then also like being super realistic about the fact that like what is realistic. So then when we got word that we got 1 PGT-A normal embryo, same thing. It was like, gut punch that we only got 1 because that feels so minimal, but also was like, thank God we only got 1. I mean, not only, but thank God we got 1. You know, it was both things were happening at the same time. And when I came into this retrieval, and even in past retrievals with my previous doctors, we would align up front that 1, we were all hoping for 1. Like in past retrievals too. That was kind of the understanding. If we could just get 1, that would be a success. So we got 1. So that is a success.
Huge success.
It still feels kind of sad to like just see the whole drop off. And I think that's more of the thing that I'm interested in, like processing is this just like mental gymnastics game that you're going through. And because you know, and you like 50% drop off feels like a huge percentage, you know, it's I don't know. It's that's the part that's harder for me to like process. Now we have 6 from 5 retrievals and varying degrees of quality. My earliest embryos were made at a different clinic with a different lab and they had different lab scoring. So kind of it was hard for my new lab when we transferred them over to our new lab it was hard for them to like exactly score them in the same way, you know,
Yeah.
because they aren't the ones doing the scoring at the time. Now the embryo is frozen, so they're like interpreting a prior lab's
Mhm.
scoring
Mhm.
to give it an ec- a s- to give it a score that I don't know what to say. What's wrong with my brain?
To give it a
To like give it the score, like to score it on their rubric. How about that?
right, okay.
That's the way to
Yep,
say it.
yep.
So, but they're all like medium lower quality.
Mhm,
So like BCs,
mhm.
CBs, CCs. Yeah.
And what was the quality of this one from the last retrieval?
This one was a 3cc.
Okay.
I took notes from my chat with the doctor. You know, sometimes it feels like an oh shit chat. like
Yeah.
like
Uh-huh.
like yeah, like let's
For the what the
yeah,
fuck appointment?
the what the fuck appointment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I kind of feel bad about because like again, we were on the same page that
Yeah.
this result would be like a big success for us, but I still went into it being like what the fuck? Let's get the
Like,
details.
yeah. What happened?
What happened? Yeah. So, let's see. Okay, I do have a little bit of a debrief on the cycle
Okay.
now,
Yep.
having talked to
Mhm.
my doctor. Okay, so we started with my antral follicle count was about 16, right? My original, like the first couple of days, my response to stim was low. Like my estrogen was weak. And so we upped the stim protocol like 5 or 6 days in. And so that's an interesting insight for if we were to do this again in the future. And we should get to that question. Will I do this again in the future? Good question.
Mhm.
We can come back to that, but if we were to do this again in the future, that's an interesting insight because it may indicate that we did estrogen priming to start, and it may indicate that like everything was too slow. It was actually hard to wake up the ovaries
Yeah.
to go do the thing that they needed to do. And so we talked about alternative priming that we would maybe consider if
Okay.
we were to do this again.
Okay.
And that could look like, which I've never done, Clomid. Have you done
Mhm.
Clomid priming?
Gosh. I
I
have
know
done a
people hate
Clomid
it.
cycle, but I have not done Clomid
Yeah.
priming. It was awful, but yes. Okay.
I've heard that's like the
It
one that most people hate, right?
Yeah, for me, it was like I mean, I have a positive experience with estrogen, so I don't know. It's hard to compare, but how you describe estrogen, I feel like it's that times 10. Like, I just
Oh, no.
that was the one where I one night just looked at Anthony and I was like, "I have to go to bed." Like, I'm actually, like, losing my mind right now, and I just need to, like, be asleep because I cannot be in my brain right now because I was so hormonal. Yeah.
Oh my
But
gosh. No, that sounds awful. That sounds really awful. I'm sorry to anyone who has to go through that. Yeah. So he did say potentially the estrogen could have like slowed like it was intended to slow things down so that everything kind of nothing else would like take off on its own and everything we would like start the cohort of follicles together and they would grow together. But maybe it made everything too slow because I didn't respond very quickly. Like it took close to a week to see real growth, actually. And then let's see, we did 12 days of meds, which we talked about last time. We triggered on day
Mhm.
13. We talked about the left and right side. People will remember the left side actually grew and like responded to meds. The right side was a dud. And I dug in with him on that a little bit. And he said that's quite common with DOR, diminished ovarian reserve, where the ovaries don't quote unquote perform normally or in a more dysfunctional way. And then, okay, so then we got 8 eggs, 4 were mature. So this was lower than we hoped. And he did flag that was not a great drop off. That could be a quality issue, kind of related to the fact that like the right side also didn't budge. So like they just weren't as responsive and they may have been more dysfunctional. So hard to know like what happened to those other 4 eggs. Like,
Mhm.
Katie and I have talked a lot about like our ideal way to do egg retrievals is that you could see literally every follicle had a measurement. You know exactly the egg that came out of it, if it was quality, if it was mature, if it fertilized, so that you could get a better sense of like for Amy, my follicles need to be 25 millimeters in size. For Katie, they need to be 30 or whatever it
Yeah.
is. And that would be such like an amazing world to be in. However, you'd have to be under for a really long time, and
Hmm.
they just don't do egg retrievals that way. So it's really hard to know what actually caused that drop off. Like, were those follicles empty, or, well, we know we got the eggs. So were those eggs,
But
like, were
yeah,
they from
what
smaller
follicle did they come
follicles?
from? Exactly. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Should they have gone longer? I mean, I guess the counter to all of that is, even if you knew that data, how would you implement it in a cycle? Because, like, your body is your body. It's not like you can decide to, like, maybe you could decide to hold. No, you can't, because you have to trigger. So I
Yeah.
was
I
gonna say,
mean,
you could decide to hold some follicles, give them an extra day, go back tomorrow and get those follicles, but you can't do that because you have to trigger.
yeah, I think the benefit would be like in my situation, and this is just, based on how the retrieval went. This is the assumption, but there's not really a way to prove this theory, is that I just need longer to stem because
Mhm.
we retrieved more mature eggs because we went. I think my largest follicle was like almost 30 millimeters by the time I triggered. And the assumption is that one was probably blown out and not
Mhm.
usable. But again, like there's no way to know what egg came from what size follicle. And so,
Right.
because if you can tell that information, then you might see like, hey, all of the mature eggs came from follicles that were 25 plus, right? Or
Right.
between 18 and 22. And so like that's the sweet spot. That's what we're looking for. And so if they were
Mhm.
able to like have that information on what size your follicle is to get the mature egg, then it could be helpful.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, I think we're very, very long ways off from that sort of IVF
Yeah.
world.
I know. It reminds me of this one podcast I was listening to with, I forget who, but there was like a researcher on with this doctor, IVF doctor, but they were saying like the future of
Mhm.
IVF and of egg retrievals is you can retrieve an immature eggs,
Yes, and
and we
they can
can
mature
and we can
outside of.
mature them. And
I
so
saw
this
that
isn't
too.
like available to us yet, but that would be great, because then you wouldn't have to give up
It
on
doesn't
these
matter.
eggs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then let's see what else. Oh, okay. I did ask him about the big boy follicle, remember?
Mhm.
And he did say
The one
if there
that
was
was like a not a
a
cyst, but the one that
runaway,
was just, yeah, the runaway. Mhm.
the runaway. I mean, it could have been a cyst. We don't know if that follicle had an egg in it, because when they drained it, like, they're not checking. It was, oh, that big follicle equates to like whatever I see in the petri dish. But he said, the big follicle, if it was active, it would have produced a lot of estrogen. It may have been an inactive cyst that also grows with the meds, but it
Okay.
didn't play much of a role because my estrogen was right in line with about 8 eggs,
Okay.
and I got 8 eggs. Because I did ask, like, could this have been like, could this have been a part of the, why I had to go stem longer, or why it was slow to start? And he's like, probably not, because your estrogen at cycle start would have been much higher if this was an egg,
Okay.
like an active follicle. So that was kind of an interesting learning. He also, because I asked him about the AFC, the antral follicle count that we started out was 16, because I was curious during the mid cycle counts when I came in and did the mid cycles. We got like maybe two, we counted like 2 or 4 total. And I was like, how did that happen? Like, how did we go from like 2 or 4 to like 16? And he said that at the mid cycle, it's not a great time to get a follicle count,
Okay.
because everything is really quiet and you don't have any active follicles because
Right.
you just ovulated. And so it's interesting, because when I was going in to that appointment, and I did several mid-cycle appointments ahead of this retrieval, that's when we were checking me, because we were going to start priming right after that. So I was like going into these cycles with like the depths of I was thinking this was in the trash. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah,
And I
I
feel like we
remember.
could have done a better job setting expectations on that.
Like, hold your
Or
horses, like, just yeah.
I mean, he did. I remember bringing this up in the room, and he would say like, "Well, let's see. Let's just see." And now I understand why he was saying that. But at the time, I was thinking, this is just going to be like, this is like the worst picture possible. So I went into this cycle, and you will remember this. Like, I went into the cycle of being like, we're going to be lucky if we get one mature egg, you know? And so I think that would have been a good thing to have talked about in advance. Like, this is not an accurate picture, full stop. You know, we didn't really have that combo. It leads me to that other point I was like toying with earlier. We often hear, I think, as women going through infertility, that this is like an egg quality problem, or it's often an egg quality problem. But then you also are now hearing the stronger other side that's like, no, sperm is 50% of the equation, and like can also contribute to significant defects in the embryo or issues with the pregnancy, like in the placenta, et cetera.
Right.
And so I'm just very curious about that statement, you know?
Yeah, because and you're right. We should have somebody on to talk specifically about this. And I know we've wanted to have a conversation too about mosaic embryos and embryo grading and,
Yeah.
kind of how much weight like that should truly carry. So I can't speak to this because I'm not a doctor, but like that is what I'm not a doctor, if you didn't know.
If you didn't know,
My
Katie's
medical
not a
degree
doctor.
over the
If
weekend.
you didn't know, I'm also not a doctor. So don't listen to us for medical advice.
But I thought I think you're right that I've heard the same thing where like the sperm plays a bigger role in how the pregnancy progresses because of it is responsible for the placenta, was my
Right.
understanding, or kind of how I've always thought about it or been told about it. Whereas
Yeah.
like maybe the fertilization and whether or not like it develops. So I don't know. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So those are some
Well,
of my learnings from this cycle. And I think the question a lot of people will be asking, and maybe, I don't know, did they ask? You can ask me if they did,
okay. What?
is will I do this again?
I don't think that question came up. So go ahead
Oh, really?
and answer that. And then, yeah, I have
Interesting.
a list of questions for you, my own and also other
Okay, good.
questions.
Ooh, good. Okay. So will I do this again? At this point, I hope I don't ever have to do this again. And
Mhm.
I'm really, okay, how do I want to say this? Going into this retrieval, I really waxed and waned about even doing another retrieval. But when I went in to go get my AMH checked again and do a follicle count many, many months ago, and everything was looking so old and shriveled up, I really had like the fear of God kind of put into me of like,
Mhm.
you're going to run out of time. Like you're actively running out of time. If the surrogacy route doesn't work the first or second time, which it's not, nothing is guaranteed to work the first or second or third or ever time. You may have no other options at that point. And we do want to have biological children. And it was like really a fear-based decision for sure. The other thing that helped me make this decision was we finally had insurance benefits, which we've never had before. So it was like kind of, one, you're nervous about not having enough embryos banked to make the surrogacy route happen. And two, now you have an opportunity to do it at a far less cost. So those were like the intention. That's what kind of helped us get over the line to do it again. But that said, I'm not like interested in like, it's not about banking tens and tens of embryos. Frank, I will never make that many, It's
Yeah.
like, can you get a few tries for a pregnancy? And in general, they say it could take three embryos or three transfers, three genetically normal embryos to have a live birth. And so that's what I'm kind of going off of is now we have three chances for two potential
Mhm.
pregnancies or two potential births. So that was kind of my
Yeah.
barometer,
Mhm.
And right now I feel like I don't want to I won't do this again. But I really think I'm very practical in this regard. Not always. I'm quite emotional in many other places of my life, but I've been very practical about this. That like it's a math calculation and it's a probability matrix. Like it's a set of probabilities that you're working with, and it's like you can't plan it and you can't control it. And so what I can control is giving us the best option possible or the best options possible. And so that leads me to like, if the surrogacy route works, then I will have a lot less pressure on myself, right? So, like, if it works the first time and we get into a healthy pregnancy, then like, yeah, I don't have to do this again. And that's amazing.
Yeah.
So that's where my head's at. I will share that I think regardless, like Nima feels like we should be done,
Mm.
because he has witnessed me go through so much. We had a chat about this when we got the results. And I was like, do you think we should do another one now that we have 6 in the bank? And he said, absolutely not. We're done. You're done. And I was like a little taken aback by it. And I was like, why do you say that? And he goes, we have put you through so much. And it was like a really sweet conversation where he like really like almost grabbed me by the shoulders and was like, you're done. Like, we're done messing with your body. Like, we're
Mm.
done messing with your homeostasis. And it was just like it was like a really powerful conversation because, of course, my instinct was like, do we need to do another? Like, again, I'm like being rational about like the count and the probabilities. And I'm like, do we need to do another? And maybe not rational, actually, because I'm being very fear based. So maybe it's actually more emotional than rational. And he just like cut through the noise immediately and was like,
Yeah.
no, that was it. So it's hard to say for sure if you will or you won't, because you don't know what the future is going to hold and you don't know. It's like me saying I would never do IVF 5 years ago, or like it's me thinking I would never be the person who has to do surrogacy. You change, you evolve with new information, you change your mind with new information, you open your heart with new information. And so I guess I say that with like a big caveat, like who knows what the future holds, but for now I hope that's it. And I'm very excited about it. And I have not taken a supplement in 2 weeks.
Hell yeah. Good for you.
Although now I feel
I
like
know
I should because I'm starting to break out. And I'm like, is this because I'm not taking CoQ10 and like vitamin E?
Amy's been texting me and she'll be like, I'm going to the gym or I'm going to like, I feel like you're doing a lot more self-care
I
type
am.
stuff where I'm like, yeah, go and do that. Okay, great. We'll connect later. And,
Yeah.
I'm not running to the pharmacy to pick up meds in a haste because they're about to close. But no, one thing I was going to say is, and I want to talk about this more later because I think this is a bigger topic, but I do think it's interesting that when you go through infertility and IVF, all of the what ifs are always the worst case scenario what ifs. Like
Always.
I'm cautious about saying this because it might sound too like optimistic and like, all of the things that we wish for and hope for, you hope you get pregnant right before the IVF cycle or all of these different things. But like, what if something actually works out and we want to bank these embryos and we want to collect as many as we can because we are so accustomed to worst case scenario and I need to be prepared.
Yeah.
But also like there's the flip side of that of like, what if things change and something positive does happen that is surprising and miraculous? And so I think that's like interesting too. Like we're so just ready to go to battle at all times. And I think it's like interesting that Nima saw that and was like, you're done. Because you could keep going forever. You could do another retrieval and you could get nothing.
Literally
You could do
forever.
another retrieval and just one. And yeah, I mean, you do have to make that intentional choice to be like, okay, I'm done. Like this is where I just trust that everything will work out.
Yeah. You can always come at it from the negative and like fear based. And I think as you were talking about that, I think what dawned on me is that it is in such stark contrast to how I started our path to our fertility journey anyway. Like it's in such stark contrast to the person I was 5 years ago who really never thought about the negative side or barely ever did. Thought about like the like things not working out as I expected. And so that person, I think, got hit over the head so many times and had her heart ripped out and like stomped on every I mean, I'm thinking about like every procedure I went into thinking, oh, that was the last surgery I needed. And this is just to like clear me to like try to have a baby or try to get pregnant. And every single one of those procedures, I would get let down and be told, like, nope, you need another one. Nope, you need another one. Nope, you need another one. And I wonder if that is just common for everybody, regardless. Like once you start down the IVF route or like the alternative route, if you will, do we all come at it from that lens, or is it these like the beat down that you get? You're sort of like your positive
Mm,
optimism gets sort of beat out of you, you know? I wonder. I mean, for me, I do feel like it was
yeah.
like beat out of
Yeah.
me, you know? And what was beat out of me is any trust I have that my body will do this. So
Mhm.
now I can't trust my body. So,
Yeah.
like, I have to do something else. Like, I have to have a different plan in place.
I think you're correct that it is something that is beat out of you because I think I went into IVF with
Mm.
optimism and I would have remained optimistic had our first egg retrieval worked. But as soon as it didn't, then it was like, okay, you've now experienced the other side. You've now been the statistic where this doesn't work. And so, how are you supposed to be naive again and think that we say it all the time, like, too much now. And
Mhm.
so once you've experienced that, and it's the same thing with loss, like
Mm.
people who experience pregnancies but have never experienced a pregnancy loss, like they don't know. Yes, you can have anxiety and fear surrounding your pregnancy. And I experienced that throughout my entire pregnancy, but my fear was because of infertility and IVF. My fear was not because I had had a pregnancy loss before. And I think that those are actually
Mm.
two very separate feelings because, one is based on experience and one is based on general anxiety of the what ifs. Because I think if I'm being really, really honest with myself, while I was anxious, there was always a part of me that was like, no, but this will work out, right? Like we've made it this far. So like it's going to work out.
Mm.
Whereas the woman who has experienced the loss knows what it actually feels like to not work out. And so it's hard to go back once you have experienced that. And so I think what you're talking about is, yeah, two different IVF patients, like an IVF patient who thankfully, like, even though they needed IVF and like it was hard to get to that point, it has worked out for them. And like IVF has been, I'm one of those IVF patients where like thankfully my first transfer worked. Like I didn't have to experience that feeling of a failed transfer. But somebody like you, where like you have gone in for repeated procedure after procedure and continued to get bad news, I think that is like a different kind of just experience in general. And like it can be much more difficult to be optimistic or to feel any sort of trust in your body, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah. Yeah, and I wanna be careful not to, like, compare the 2 either, because 'cause they're
Yeah,
both
I don't think it's
totally
a
relevant and, like,
right.
and they're totally real. And so
It's
not that you are, I'm just
it's
in my head, I
yeah.
wanna make sure
Mhm.
I'm not framing it in, like, one or the other or, you know this is the thing. They're all legitimate and they're all real and they're all unique and that's kind of like the
Exactly.
crazy thing about all of us lumped into like this infertility category is we just have such unique experiences and paths to get here and then paths from here to parenthood eventually or maybe even not if you decide not to go that route. I think this boils down to for me is like I see a lot of comments like in the social sphere about why are you banking embryos or like questions like that, which like generally I'm fine to answer any of them as long as people are respectful of each other. But I think what it points to for me is like everyone's experience is so unique and your things that drive you are going to be unique. And it's so important to have autonomy over your decisions to be
Mhm.
able to make those decisions for your unique situation. So my unique situation is not your situation is not somebody else's situation, and I think that's, like, maybe what it's all coming down to for me as we talk about this, like, it's just a
Yeah.
reminder that anything that happened to me is not necessarily going to happen to you. My learnings from my retrieval are not gonna be always relevant, like, maybe they'll be something in there to like spark interest or like, give you like a creative new thing to think about or ask your doctor about. But like, I'm hedging now. I just like, you know what I
No,
mean?
I think that's right. I think it's like I view it as all of our experiences are different. Like pain is not weighted.
Yes, there you
Like
go.
pain is pain. And also, my story is not your story, but like our stories can help
Yes.
inform one another of potential treatment options, of potential paths forward. We can help educate each other and share our stories so that that information is out there because more information is
Yeah,
more
true.
empowering, specifically like especially like in the patient chair. But at the same time, like just because something happened to somebody else,
Yeah.
and I think this is so, so, so true for pregnancy, specifically like pregnancy after loss and IVF pregnancy, because I think like I see this a lot in that community where there is so much fear surrounding like when somebody else has a loss, especially when it's like public on social media
Yeah.
or, it's paralyzing when you are also pregnant and you're witnessing somebody else who is similarly far along as you are or had a similar journey
Yeah.
to get to their pregnancy. But every pregnancy is different, every body is different, every IVF experience is different, every retrieval is different. Like, we can't do that. Like we can't
Yeah.
we it's already heavy
Yeah.
enough. Like we can't carry
Yeah.
the anxiety from someone else's story alongside our own. I
Yeah.
feel like we're like
Really in it.
going off a
Yeah.
tangent.
Okay. Let's get to the
I don't even know if this is
questions.
making sense anymore. Okay, well, thank you for sharing
Thank
about
you.
all of these findings with your doctor. I do want to
Yeah.
ask for anyone who's listening that is like, I want to have these conversations with my
Oh,
doctor.
yeah.
Like, what did you set this up? Like, how can somebody get this kind of information about their own retrieval?
Good question. I think generally your doctor should be doing a debrief with you and your results, right? And
Yeah.
I think maybe in the first cycle I ever did, I didn't like know what that meeting entailed. I didn't maybe have like questions that I had prepared going into it, but we should all be expecting or like holding our doctors to this expectation that we will get thorough information and like a debrief about what happened. And then one of the things, I mean, I didn't send any of these questions in advance, but I think you've done that in the past, right? Or you've sent questions in advance, or
I think I
maybe I
did.
heard
I
that
think
from
I
somebody.
sent No, I think you're right. I think I sent an email list of like, these are the questions that I
Yeah.
want to talk about or to
Yeah.
chat through.
I've done that in the past too, and that can help a lot because then you're giving them a heads up, which is like everybody
Mhm.
appreciates that. But I try to think through like what kind of questions I want to ask in advance and just like bullet point them out or like give myself some keywords so I can like remember to ask them.
Yeah.
And Allie, the embryologist, our good girlfriend and amazing embryologist, who go check out her episodes because they're very fun. She has given me some good ways of posing these questions to my doctor, which I think may help open the conversation. Usually, if I frame something around like, was that what you expected, is a
Mhm.
good opportunity, like opens the door for them to like go dig in a little bit more versus like,
Why
was
did
that
this
good or was that
happen?
bad or
Yeah.
why did this happen or like being really disappointed. I've tried to come to these questions or come to these conversations like curious
Mhm.
and engaging. And I try to think of my doctor as like on my team. So
Mhm.
they also want the best for me even when I'm frustrated with them or like even when I, am sad or frustrated about what happened, I'm trying to come to the table. I'm trying to like put my brain into a place of like collaboration and less like, demanding or blamey, if you will.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's like probably the best pro tip I've ever heard and used in real life, which is framing questions like, was that what you expected? Or would you do, like, I often say, do you have any thoughts about why this may have happened? Or do you have any thoughts about how we might change this in the future? Or is there anything you would change in the future? So, very
Mhm.
open ended questions.
Mhm. Very,
Yeah.
very smart. I like it.
Yeah. I don't know. That seems to work. But I will be honest, I'm like, it's also nerve wracking. Even though I go into it with that, like, I try to pep my, like, pep myself up a little bit, give myself a pep
Mhm.
talk beforehand.
Yeah.
But I'm still like, am I doing a good job in this call? Like, am I being rude? Like, am I getting what I need? Am I, if I leave the call, I'm usually like, did I ask all the questions I had? So it's hard. I think all the way around. Being a patient is hard. That's not our job. We're not specialists in this, right? We're not the doctor, the scientist, the expert, but we are in the best position to advocate for ourselves and to, I guess, hold accountable like our care team to support us in the way that we need. And I think that's I think most of the time, like they're on board with that.
Yeah. Like you deserve to have answers. Like this is your body. You're putting yourself through this. This is your heart and soul. And like you're
Yes.
physically going through it. You're emotionally going through it. So you deserve to be able to
Financially,
like
you hired
financially,
them.
yes,
Remind yourself of that.
all of these things. And so like you are worthy. Is that too powerful of a word to
Yeah.
use here? But like,
No,
but
it's
you're
right.
like, you're allowed to ask these things, and I think sometimes we shrivel and feel scared and meek and, like, "Oh, this is the doctor, like, they're so busy," and you deserve to be able to, like, get the answers that you want and to
Yeah.
ask the questions that you want and to understand what's happening with your body. Like,
Yes.
yes, this is our medical team and we trust them and, we're relying on their expertise, but it's also happening to my body, so I wanna understand what's going on
Yeah.
and
Ooh.
and to know, like,
You just made me think like there's so much wrapped up in not trusting your body. We just talked about one reason, right? Keeps failing. So that's how I
Mhm.
got here. But also not listening to our physical bodies, like women in general. I think a lot of us have been sort of trained or like nurtured into kind of putting our own needs aside just
Yeah,
for probably generations and generations. So that it's hard
yeah.
to even recognize like your needs or your questions or your body or your confidence are even like first class citizens in this conversation. And they are.
Mm,
And they are.
mhm.
And that's kind of what I mean about like you're the best person to advocate for yourself, but it is very uncomfortable. And a lot of us, myself very much included, need to practice that a lot. The
Yeah.
other thing I'll end on that note with is if your care team and your doctors are not engaging in that kind of conversation, I would say that's probably a big
Red
red
flag.
flag.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You're
Agree.
paying, you've hired this team. You are allowed to have expectations of professionalism and care and due diligence and all of that. So, I hope that's not
Mhm.
controversial to say. Oh, more thing is I was told by another friend of mine who works in the infertility space as well. She reminded me, Amy, that's why they call it a practice. Medicine is a practice. We
Mhm.
don't know everything. And certainly that is
Mhm.
true in infertility cases and women's
Yes.
health. So if
Mhm.
you need a little confidence to ask your question, remember that.
Yeah. Yeah. They're learning too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, technology is changing, our data is changing. Like, what
Mhm.
was true even a year ago has been
Oh,
pushed. The boundaries have been pushed and they continue to get pushed. And
the
we should
things that
want
we
that.
experienced when we
Mhm.
first started
Yeah.
going through IVF, like those things, like needle-free IVF, that didn't exist when I
Yeah.
started IVF in 2023.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, even just in 3 years, like some of the things that have changed, some of the studies that have come out about, PGT testing and
Yeah.
mosaic embryos and recurrent loss and like all of these different things, like like learning it's
Yeah.
happening all the time,
Yeah.
every single day.
Yeah.
So,
And I guess
yeah,
you would want to make sure that your care team is doing that alongside you,
is learning
is learning. Yeah.
is
I mean,
is not just, like, stuck in the
I just heard some doctor, a clinic that I follow, a doctor on Instagram at that clinic was talking about why metabolic health is important, but he was anchoring it on BMI. And I was like, dude,
Mhm. Yeah,
we know that BMI is a very
yeah,
flawed metric and it
right. This is dated.
this is very dated. And you have an opportunity to communicate actually about like metabolic health here, but you're using this like precious resource of people's time and energy to talk about BMI as like the key metric. And I'm like, I don't know.
Like, here's the food pyramid poster
Yeah.
to help inform your diet decisions
Yeah.
as you start your IVF
Yeah.
cycle. Um, okay, so we are going to do some rapid fire questions from listeners about this retrieval. First
Okay.
one is people want to know how old you are.
I'm 38. I'm almost 39.
Halloween baby.
Woo! Yes. So geriatric pregnancies would be that's my
Yeah,
that's where I'm at.
more important than that, if you care about any of the birthday things, Amy is a Scorpio and not born on Halloween, but close enough to
Yes.
be a Halloween baby.
Close enough. Yes.
Yes.
30 minutes before Halloween, my mother was very, very, very specific that I would not be born on Halloween. More on that at another time.
So funny.
I know.
Okay, so why did you change clinics? This person's just starting their journey and she's curious kind of what to look out for. So were there red flags at your old clinic or what was the decision to change?
Oh, my old clinic is lovely. I still love them. I changed clinics purely because my old clinic is not in network and I wanted to use insurance benefits to pay for this cycle. First time I've had benefits, so wanted to use them. So I found a clinic actually through my existing old clinic. My old clinic is still my clinic who I'm working with through
Right.
surrogacy. So my old doctor is still my doctor for the surrogacy journey. And she recommended this other clinic and doctor that she has worked with for a very long time to be my, IVF round doctor because their clinic is in network. So that's the only reason I changed. No red flags. I think very different styles of both clinics. The clinic I was at is in Beverly Hills and it's quite big and like was just bought by private equity, which is not a great thing
More on
in
that
my
later.
opinion. More on that later. I can do a whole rant on that, but much bigger operation there. Like I think they had like 7 or 8 doctors who are partners and they just have a much bigger operation at that clinic. This clinic is much smaller. There's only 2 doctors. And so it just like the main difference was like just the size of the clinic. And there was a good episode that we did with Allie about picking clinics. So you check that one out. We can post in the show notes.
Yeah, I think it's just like called what to look for in a clinic or something. But yes, it goes.
Yeah.
And Allie is our friend who's an embryologist. So she gives some really good
Yes.
advice there. What symptoms did you experience recovering from your egg retrieval?
Okay, hot flashes, really tough, like had a hard time sleeping, had a lot of insomnia. I did not this time have any of the like hyperstim feelings that people have, like issues. One retrieval I did have hyperstim, which is funny because I only have I don't have that many eggs. Like I don't have any that many follicles, but I had a lot of fluid in my pelvic area with one of the previous cycles that I had. So we watched it and I didn't have any of that. Mostly it was like I was exhausted. I had constipation, which we talked about.
We did.
And I really just tried to take that week very easy, like walking. I tried to walk a lot.
Yeah.
And sleep a lot. I was just trying to be really gentle with myself, baby myself.
I feel like you did a really good job at self-care. I mean, I feel like you always have, but I feel like as you have done more retrievals, I feel like you know what to expect now. And so I feel like you, at least with this retrieval, really leaned into that with work and rest and kind of preparing yourself.
Yeah, those are hard lessons to learn, right? But I do think you're right. I was more realistic this time about not making plans, going to bed early. Neem and I had chats in advance about okay, we all know that I have feelings about estrogen, doesn't react well with me. So how to support me better and his, how he could show up. And we just we're in better sync Maybe, and I think it's because I knew what to expect.
Yeah.
Like I knew that I'm sensitive and vulnerable and, this was going to suck. So,
How much has your protocol changed each time?
oh, a good amount. So I've been to 3 clinics. First clinic, my first 2 retrievals, we did estrogen priming, no omnitrope. Pretty much everything else was the same, like gonal, cetrotide, all, what else? Follistim, I guess that's gonal. Most of that was the same. Like, I don't remember. What else is there? Follistim, gonal. No, that's the same. Oh my God.
Menopur?
Menopur. There we go. So like follistim or
Mm-hmm.
gonal and menopur, and then eventually like something to block ovulation and then your trigger shot. My second clinic, we switched from estrogen to Lupron priming. And I think that was
Mm-hmm.
because we had, and this is so interesting now that I look back at it, we had a hypothesis that my body was not uptaking the estrogen well, which
Okay.
is interesting because it always like destroys my brain as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were like,
Mm-hmm.
maybe estrogen's not great for priming. Let's try Lupron. So we did Lupron priming. We also added Omnitrope in the beginning of the cycle. And I think I might have taken it all the way through, but everything else was the same: Follistim, gonal, Menopur,
Yeah.
all of that. And then this cycle with the third clinic, we did estrogen priming again, Omnitrope for the
Mm-hmm.
first week, and everything else was the same. So not a ton, but a little bit here and there. And now actually, and like if you heard at the top of the hour, we may, if I ever did it again with this clinic and this doctor, he was like, well, maybe we'll try a Clomid priming instead. And so interesting. But he also
Which,
did note none of the protocols are statistically better or worse than others. We change things
oh,
because we
interesting.
want to see a change. Like it's hard for
Mm-hmm.
all of us patients, I think especially, to do the same thing over and over again because it feels like insanity,
Yeah.
So we like
Right.
want to see
Mm-hmm.
some protocol shift. So that
Mm-hmm.
would be also really interesting to bring like, somebody on to talk about protocols and hash that out with.
Right, because there's probably no like perfect protocol even for
No.
a patient because every cycle is different. And so
Yeah.
even if you rinse and repeat, you might have a different outcome.
Yeah. And
That's so
and
interesting to
your
think about.
every cycle is different and it is different patches. It's a different batch of follicles entirely too. So your
Right.
body
Mhm.
might have been a bad month, it might have been a good month. Who knows? And
Also, you have the sperm as part of the equation,
true.
like when you get to the fertilization part.
True.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just, again, so many variables. And going back
True.
to whether you're done or not, and Nima saying that you are, I will +1 that because I feel like the fact that they want to do Clomid for your next one is just like,
Don't do it.
yeah, no, we're
We're
good.
good.
Amy does not need to experience Clomid.
We'll
That
leave
is
it.
just not something that you need to do. Yeah, you're not gonna have FOMO. You're good without it. Okay, last question
Okay.
for you, which is just so sweet. Somebody asked, they said that they love listening to the pod, that it feels like having sisters, and they want to know how you're doing.
That's
Just
so
how are
sweet.
you?
I am today in this moment I'm doing well. I'm doing good. I'm doing
Good.
way better than I was at the end of that retrieval. And way better than I was even the day that we got even way better than I was when I got, like, the latest news. So, I'm so good. I'm good. Thank you for asking. I am, as Katie, you mentioned, and I'll try to keep this really short, but, like, that I'm, like, doing the self-care thing right now. I'm trying to get back into my body a little bit and, like, actually move and, like, push myself a little bit physically, not for IVF, but for, like, strength and, endorphins and things that make you feel happy. So, that's top of mind, and I'm trying to sleep really well.
In the next episode, maybe you can give us some of your sleep tips because I am not sleeping well because this bedroom has been, it's been like we've had to make it work. Like we installed like an IKEA closet for extra storage. Anthony's nightstand is like a tiny, like I looked for where can I get like the tiniest nightstand possible because he has to be able to open the wardrobe door, but also have like a bedside table.
Uh-huh.
And then, as we know, my desk is here, and
Yeah.
Lumi was here before, like her crib is fine. So it's just been like not a very peaceful sleep situation. So I'm
Yeah.
excited to kind of redecorate and make like a zen, like have, yeah,
Okay.
get some good
You're
sleep.
inspiring me to do that as well. Things I have
To do that in your room.
I've just have like half finished projects, as you know.
Oh my
That's
God.
just how it is.
That is,
Yeah.
I feel like that is how it is.
Okay.
Okay, well, I want to can I tease
Yeah.
quickly that
What are we
so
teasing?
we have really exciting episodes this summer starting this month
Yes, we
because
do.
Amy is we're going to finally fill you all in on some of the surrogacy journey
Yes.
and get to hear how that's going
Got a
and
lot to catch up on.
a lot to catch up on. So
Yep.
yeah, definitely stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
And other than that, happy June.
Happy June, and we'll
We'll
see you guys again soon.
Bye.
If I stop looking, I'll find what I'm looking